I was asked to make Maui's hook for a production of Moana the Musical, so I gathered together my tools and some pine shorts, and I started by cutting the shorts down to size and then planing the edges so that they were nice and smooth, and that way the glue had a really nice surface to adhere to when I clamped it all together. And I found online a template from the Wood Whisperer, which was the right size and shape that I needed, so I took a lot of inspiration from that template to create a panel of the rough shape of the hook, and that way I could then later on cut the hook out of the panel. So once I checked that the panel was fine, I applied the template once again to mark out where I needed to cut and use a jigsaw to find the shape of the hook within the panel, making sure that I cut everything out nicely. This is what I'm up to. I've been able to sand it all down and shape it. I've even recessed out the handle where the rope would go. I'm up to the point where I need to now do the markings, to do all the carvings in it, and then paint it. But that's going to have to wait till next weekend because I've run out of time. So this has been a lot of fun. I'm really excited about this. For the carvings on Maui's fishhook, I first drew the designs onto the template and then using a carbon transfer technique, transferred them to the actual hook itself. And I did this to have some symmetry because I wanted to have the same carvings on both sides. But in hindsight, it would have just been easier to draw the carvings directly onto the hook. Then once I was happy with it, I used a soldering iron to burn the wood and mark the carvings into the hook. After shaping the hook, I've now added in all the carvings and I think it's looking pretty good. I'm really impressed with that. My next stage is to paint it an ivory colour, and hopefully all the carving burns will kind of come through the paint. And if not, that's fine because I'll just go through with a fine brush and I'll re-emphasize them with a brown. And then I'll wrap the handle and then we'll be done. The colour I chose is called Chalkstone, and it was a little bit brighter than I had hoped it would be, but that was okay because later on I'm going to go through and weather the hook anyway. For the carvings on Maui's hook, I just used some brown paint and a fine brush to line each of the carvings individually. And if I made any mistakes, that was okay. I just cleaned it up with a little bit of water on a rag, which also helped to add to the weathering, which I would do a little bit later on. I kept the carving designs pretty simple because it is a stage prop and I wanted them to stand out and people to be able to see them, so they're not overly intricate. And then to weather the hook, I just put some brown paint on a damp cloth and rubbed it all over the hook, which helped to dull the colour but also emphasise certain spots so it looked a little bit more like ivory. And now we're at the point where we've got to wrap the handle. And originally I thought that I would wrap it like this, starting from the top and working my way down, but I'm thinking now that I might cut off little sections to cover this middle bit like that and then work from the middle up and then the middle back. And I think I'm going to get better coverage that way and it'll look more authentic to what Maui has in the movie. Let's try it anyway. Cutting off a few sections to start with and then hot gluing them to the middle, it gave me an idea of what it would actually look like and I was pretty happy with it. So I continued with wrapping the rest of the handle, making sure that I use the hot glue gun in between each of the strands to ensure that it's really secure and not come apart. And here we have the final product. And I have to say, I am really happy with how this turned out. I had a lot of fun making this, from cutting it out and shaping it and carving it and painting it, wrapping the handle and then weathering it so it looks like ivory. It was a lot of fun, the whole process. And for a theatre prop, I think it's going to be perfect for what they need. There are certainly things I would do differently next time if I was to make it. Like I'd spend a little bit more time refining certain parts of it. But for the most part, I'm just really happy with how this turned out. And I look forward to seeing it on stage. I'm also inspired to make a full-size version.